I often find myself at strange scenes. I'll be the first one on the scene of an accident. My friends used to call me the gutter minister because I don't know why I was always coming across hit and run victims or severe truck accidents where nobody else was on scene, whatever. Um, you have to know what you're going to do in that scenario. I walked in on an abuse situation. A man was beating up a woman. I put myself in harm's way. Someone told me, "You're going to get yourself shot one of these days." And I can tell you, I said with absolute confidence, I would rather die of a hole in the head than a hole in the heart. So I'm just telling you, you have to know who you are and what you're willing to do, and know that there may be a cost for that. Just be ready to do whatever you can to stop the harm and protect that child from further harm. Age of church workers. The church requires child care supervisors to be 18 years of age or older. Child care workers are to be 16 years or older and must work under direct oversight of a child care supervisor. The church requires preschool teachers to be 18 years of age or older. VBS youth volunteers must have completed 6th grade and will be directly supervised by an adult volunteer. All activities in which children are under adult supervision will have staff or volunteers who are at least 3 years older than the oldest child being supervised. So if you have just completed 6th grade, you're not going to work with the 5th graders. You're not going to work with the 4th graders. You're probably not going to work with 3rd graders. It's going to be 2nd grade or down. We are choosing, if you have completed 6th grade, that you'll be working on the preschool campus. So again, this is for y'all's protection. The closer you are in age, the harder it is to establish appropriate boundaries and appropriate respect for the position that you hold. So it's a means to protect you as well as to protect the children. Y'all have heard of situations where teachers have exploited students, right? And you've heard of it now and again. And it's usually incoming 1st or 2nd year teachers who are still quite young, teaching at a high school, and there's not a huge amount of years of difference. So again, we're going to try to make sure you are in situations that protects you, provides you the most protection and boundaries that you can have. Windows are in all of the classrooms that I am aware of on our campus, and I think most of the rooms that y'all will be using on First Campus. So just know that they're there for a reason. You may see somebody walking by from time to time. That's just another level of protection for someone to be peeking in just to seeing the scenario that's going on. If you're going to be working with a child who's being unruly, you don't want to go in the corner that's not visible from the door, okay? Again, if you need to be talking to a child to help them get control of themselves, you want to maybe pull aside a little bit from the group, but be where it's visible from the door. Again, it's for your protection so that they don't go home and say, so-and-so was doing so-and-so to me in the corner, right? Again, not trying to scare you, but we have to prepare for possibilities. Not if it happens, but when it happens. So we are committed to trying to create policies that will protect you and the kids. We're getting ready to take a break in just a second so y'all can go to the bathroom and get a drink. I know it's a lot of material fast. I apologize for that, but you didn't want to spend 4 hours on this, right? So, okay. So a final act of protection is to be willing and ready to respond in an appropriate, timely, compassionate manner to protect the victim. We must also prepare to protect those who may be targets of unfounded allegations. So in the event that an allegation of child abuse is made against a volunteer worker or member of the church, the following steps will be taken. First, we will take any necessary steps to assure the child's safety until the parents arrive. The safety of the victim must be the church's primary concern. If you witness abuse, immediately remove the child from danger and run to get help from an adult. Second, The contact will be made with the pastor or when available, child director, youth director, or VBS director. It will either be the pastor who will initiate the call to the parents of the victim, or she or he may ask one of the directors to initiate that call. But it will always be either the pastor or the directors to make the phone call to the parents. The accused abuser is to be treated with dignity, but immediately removed from further involvement with children, youth, or vulnerable adults. The proper law enforcement or child protective services agencies are to be contacted by the pastor. Now, if you have witnessed abuse, you too are mandated to call in to Child Protective Services. They will take your name, but they do hold it in confidence. But they do have to have it in order to report it to the police, that the police may come and talk to you. But it's not going to be broadcast that you're the one that called in. The pastor will contact any appropriate authorities over their denomination. In the United Methodist Church, we have an annual conference. We fall under our district superintendents and then under the annual conference and the bishop that serves there. So if something happened here, I'm going to contact my district superintendent, and they're going to contact or ask me to contact the bishop as well. In the Baptist church, the First Church, they have some hierarchy too that they would report to. South New Hope is a kind of more independent scenario, and so they will have to follow the protocol that they have in place. The Lutheran Church should have hierarchies that they report to, and they'll report that way. A written report of the steps taken by the church in the response to the abuse allegation will be kept with dates, names, and facts. If you are asked to write a report over something you have seen, you remember just to write down the facts. Don't make any assumptions. Don't make any allegations. Just, this is what I saw. These are the facts of the situation, okay? No one other than the pastor or the pastor's supervisors, if they've asked him, are to talk to the media, ever. No information is to be shared by word of mouth or written contact in any format. A brief and honest statement to the congregation should be made. No unnecessary details will be shared, no blame placed, and the victim's privacy will be honored. The VBS volunteers will cooperate fully with any investigation conducted by law enforcement officers. We do not have to, thank goodness, at VBS, deal with any overnight accommodations. I want to talk about this last section on page 11, then we're going to take a break. Take some deep breaths, get some oxygen to your brain. We're going to talk about appropriate physical and emotional boundaries. Physical boundaries are important in dealing with children and youth. Persons working in these areas of ministry have to understand and respect those boundaries. All physical touch, such as hugs, should be initiated by the child. Let me say that again. All hugs, physical contact, should be initiated by the child. Obviously, if a 2-year-old comes running up with their arms like this, we are not going to turn our back and say, oh, no, I can't do that, right? Because that's going to make the 2-year-old feel what? Bad. I mean, that's not our goal. I'm going to ask Jenny. Can you come up, Jenny? I'm going to show you a couple things. In the United Methodist Church, one of the trainings we have, you'll have to come up here because I can't leave the mic. One of the trainings we have is we're told always to side hug, right? Now, you've watched the Duggars. You've seen that before, right? Okay, side hug. Here's the problem I found, y'all. I was often the pastor of congregations with elderly widows that had gone years without any contact from family and very little contact with friends. I'm telling you, they want a hug. And so I made the decision early on in my ministry that I was okay being a hugger, and if that took me down, then I would deal with it. But there are some cues you want to pay attention to. If Jenny comes up to me and she looks like she's going to hug me, and so I go in, okay, I'll hug her, but she backs away, okay, I know she's not a hugger. I'm not ever going to try to initiate a hug with her, right? I'm not going to initiate it anyway, but if they come up to me and they go to hug me, she's an 80-year-old widow. She comes up to me and she wants to hug. I'm going to hug. Just a simple hug, pat, pat. Now it's done. Now, see, all my members are going to start watching me. And that's a good thing. Oftentimes, there is a widower or a male in the congregation that is a hugger, and that individual, for whatever reason, may make me feel uncomfortable. All right? Girls, you know what it is to get a hug that suddenly you think, right? Little uncomfortable. Back up, buddy. Okay, so one of the ways that I will do it then is when this male starts, you're male now, this male starts coming to give me a hug, I'm going to go, hey, it's so good to see you. All right? Now, do you see what's happened? I now have an arm, I have two arms in between us. So that is another technique. You may be seated now. Thank you, Jenny. That is a technique that you can use, again, to put an appropriate barrier in your place. Now, all my members are going to watch to see who I do that with. Okay, so, but here's the deal. You do not have to receive a hug from anyone you don't want. If you go up to a child at the beginning of VBS and you're trying to make friends with them, and you go, hey, how are you? It's going to be a great week. What's your name? And they go, all right? You don't have to force that child to give you a name. The parent may be right there, and the parent may be even saying, oh, come on, Susie, don't act so shy. No, it is perfectly okay. And I will often say, no, sweetie, it's perfectly okay. If you don't want to tell me your name, you don't have to tell me your name. I'm okay with that. If you want to take some time before you share that, that's your right. We need to give people permission to hold their own boundaries and to hold their old information, right? So even with a 2-year-old, if they back up, parent may want to force them, you can say, no, it's okay. She can take her time. He can take his time. They don't have to let me know their name. Usually they'll have a name badge on, right, by that point. So you can always look at that to call them. But again, do not force someone to share information either physically or verbally with you that they don't want to share. They don't have to do it. Also understand that you can use some other techniques. What can you use with kids, especially those closer to your age? High five, fist bumps, just a hey, whatever you need to do to communicate that you are glad they are there without imposing in on their area, their safe bubble, right? Same thing for you. Emotional boundaries are also important. As a child grows older, it's important that those offering care and leadership maintain appropriate boundaries in relationships. It's important that you do not allow children, youth, or vulnerable adults to become too attached. If they are becoming too attached to you, then they are putting themselves in a place where you are now gaining some kind of power over them, right? And so you want to make sure that you're keeping appropriate boundaries. The children around you take in much more information than they think you do. When Caden was 2, my daughter Kim is very diligent about keeping herself hydrated. She eats well. She has multiple sclerosis, so she uses it. Her health is very important to her well-being. She uses that information with her kids, and she started them early, and she would say, you have to hydrate, here's some water, and they would drink the water. One day, Caden came in, about 2.5, and said, look at me, Mama, I'm drinking water. She said, oh, that's great. I'm glad to see you drinking water. And he said, yeah, because I don't want to dehydrate.